Good morning, everybody. Mark Finan here in the home weather office on this Wednesday morning. It's now the 30th day of July, 2025, and this is the morning briefing. I'm going to start this morning with an update on the tsunami that was caused by the massive earthquake in Russia yesterday. And then last evening, we had the tsunami warning or advisory go up for the West Coast. And the waves are expected to hit around midnight. So I'm recording this a little bit after 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'll be able to show you the impacts along the West Coast. And the bottom line here is that this is less of an impact than what we had from the tsunami back in 2011 from the big Japanese earthquake. Again, this did have an impact on the West Coast. So I'll get to the tsunami first, and then I'll get to the weather that we can expect for the next couple of days. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you the tide gauges here along the West Coast. And that's what you see here. So for instance, this is Crescent City. So if I click on this, it comes up with this sort of information. Then you can plot the data down here. And then this is where you really start to see where the impact of the tsunami. So what you have here is there's a blue line, which is the predicted high and low tide. And the red line is the actual. So as you can see during the day, yesterday, everything is going along just as expected. And then this is the tsunami. And tsunamis, a lot of people think that a tsunami is a big wave. It isn't a big wave. What it is it's like the high tide coming in, where you see the waves just the water just kind of gets pushed inland and higher than it should be. And as you can see, here is the previous high tide. So this is the inundation here at Crescent City was much higher than either the previous or the following high tide. But you can also see the low. So sometimes what happens is you see the big wave come inland, the big inundation come inland, and then it ebbs. So in other words, you see all of the water go out of the harbor and then it rushes back in. So if you look at this, here's the first wave that came inland, but here's where it peaked. I'm going to focus on this. And as you can see, as I'm over this, the water level was at 7.8 feet. The predicted was 5.16. So that means that the tsunami, if you will, here in Crescent City was about 2.5 feet above the normal, or above what was expected. So that's how big the tsunami was. So it was about 2.5 feet. And again, this is a little bit more than a foot, or about 1.5 feet above the high tide level as well. And that was the biggest one we saw, or that I've been able to find here along the West Coast. But I'm going to take you all the way down the coast and show you the other spots as well, because it's interesting to look at these tide gauges and see the impact here. So let's see, does this one have? This one doesn't plot. Some of these do not plot. I think this one does here in Eureka. Yes. So in Eureka, we also have the same sort of a thing, but much less of an impact. So here is the predicted level, and then here's the high level. And here in Eureka, it's less than a foot above. But it's still, you see that jagged nature of the water coming in and then receding, then coming in and receding. So much more abrupt and much more turbulent than it is when just the normal tide is coming in and out. We'll keep going down the coast here. Let's see, does Shelter Cove have one? No, it doesn't plot. And then, but I know down here toward, you go all the way down to Point Arena. Yeah, Point Arena does. Here too, you can see the jagged nature of it. And as I'm recording this, a little after 6 o'clock in the morning, it's still going on. Things are still very turbulent. But let's see, here we have, the predicted was 4.39. And again, predicted doesn't mean it's predicted for the earthquake or the tsunami. It's predicted in terms of what the normal tide activity is. So what we're looking here is, it's almost a foot above, but still not all that unusual from the normal high tide. on either the previous or following high tide, but certainly very turbulent and not great for trying to get in or out of a harbor here, just because of the because of the currents going on with this. Let's go down all the way down here toward. I thought Bodega Bay had one. Nope. Here we go. Point Reyes has one. Point Reyes had a pretty good inundation here. 5.7 versus 4.3, so about 1.5 feet. And that is also above either the previous or the following high tide. So there's one that was much bigger, and then the following ebbs and flows are lower. So you can see there has been an impact here, but as I've been looking at information first thing this morning, I haven't been able to find anything in the way of any damage, which is great news. But certainly interesting. And now we'll go down to San Francisco here by the Golden Gate. Here too, there's an impact here, about 1 foot, and that was what was predicted. It was going to be about 1 foot or less. And what I mean by predicted was yesterday evening, a forecast came out from the Tsunami Center about just how big this might be, and they said in San Francisco it may be 1 foot or less, and that was true. And it's interesting because the advisory also went into the Delta, and let's see, I think Martinez has one. Yeah, Martinez has one, and so into the Delta it's kind of tough to tell. There may have been a little wobbly, but into the Delta there was no impact. It does sometimes tsunamis do impact the Delta, but in this case it did not. And let's see, I think Alameda has one. Yes, Alameda has one into the Bay Area. So even into the Bay itself, there was it was turbulent. Obviously, the water going back and forth much more irregularly than it usually does with the normal ebbs and flows of the tides. And again, probably a rather turbulent current, so probably not that great to be out in the bay. All right, let's go down to, I thought Santa Cruz has one, but it doesn't appear so. Monterey does. Let's see what happened in Monterey. As I'm recording this, you can still see that there is still that back and forth motion here, but here this is also much less than the previous or following high tide. But again, you can see it, and it's less than 1 foot here in Monterey. Go a little bit farther down the coast. I'll keep going all the way down toward Port San Luis. And this is a pretty big one here. 5.76 versus, so this is almost 2 feet. It really depends on how the amount that you get here kind of depends on the angle of the harbor and what the ocean floor is like near the harbor. All of that depends just how big an impact you might get, which is why the configuration of Crescent City makes Crescent City one of those areas that is very prone to getting big waves from tsunamis. This is Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara, got a, let's see, right. It was about 1 foot here as well, and then it's still going on down here. So this is about 1 foot below, which means that on the return you still might see it up as much as 1 foot. And so it's still going on in Southern California. And again, right now I'm recording this we're now up to 6:20 in the morning. And I'll go all the way down to, let's see, Santa Monica. Much less impact here. And also good news here because they're seeing the receding tide, so going into low tide as I'm recording this. But still, it's there, and the water is going to be very very turbulent. And we'll go all the way down toward La Jolla for the last one here. So cover all the California coast, basically. And here in La Jolla, very, very little impact. So, as we go through the morning, we may hear more about what has happened, if there's been any damage in any of the harbors, any boats damaged, that sort of thing. I have seen a preliminary report out of Hawaii that also showed no damage, but there was a tsunami that got there. So that's great news. So was there a tsunami on the West Coast? Yes. Crescent City for California, probably the biggest impact, around 3 feet. But because Crescent City has seen much bigger tsunamis in the past, and including 2011, Crescent City has prepared itself for tsunamis and strengthened the harbor to be able to handle this sort of thing. So I would expect that we would see minimal reports of any damage in places like that. So that's great news. So that's the update that I wanted to give you this morning on that. All right, let's go to satellite this morning. We do have this cloud cover going up the west slope and through the Sierra, and there is some rain here, and there will be some rain as we go through the day today, this morning and in the afternoon. I'm going to show you the HRRR here. Let's see, yep, I'm going to show you the HRRR and the NAM nest. So that's the way the HRRR shows it. This rain going up the west slope, and it may even be as low as about 4,500 feet. And then in the afternoon, the HRRR shows the activity around Tahoe, Reno, Carson City, and then once again through Plumas County, Lassen County, and points north, and then dissipating. And then the NAM nest, dial this back to the morning, shows a little bit less first thing, but then as we go through the morning, this one actually brings some activity down through parts of Butte County and into Tehama County. Not sure if that's going to happen. And also, the NAM nest is not showing any accumulated rain with that. So this is rain accumulation. So what the model's picking up on is some virga, or maybe some chance of some light rain, maybe around Paradise. But it's certainly showing activity on the crest of the Sierra this morning, as well as into the Tahoe Basin. But then this model showing a lot less activity this afternoon than the HRRR is, which is interesting. So yeah, that's the NAM nest this afternoon, and then the HRRR showing quite a bit more, especially if I go back to the 12Z run as opposed to the 6Z run. So yeah, this model showing quite a bit more activity this afternoon in the Sierra. But either way, the valley will stay dry, and we will see another day kind of like yesterday with the temperatures reaching the low 90s, maybe right around 90 or so. Pretty close to average. Yeah, warmer than it has been for the last week or so. But as long as we have this little wave going by, and it's this little wave that's kicking up the Sierra showers this morning and this afternoon, but we get this troughiness. And somebody in the comments section yesterday said, can you explain what you mean by troughiness? Okay, so up here we have a low, and what we talk about are troughs and ridges. So this is a ridge right here. So here's the high. So this is a ridge, and then this is a trough. So think about this almost like a topographical map. So here would be your ridge, here would be your trough. And at this time of year, a trough means more onshore flow and cooler air, and a high at this time of year means heat for us. So if you think about the high meaning heat at this time of year, and during the winter, it means dry. But right now, we're just looking at keeping this sort of pattern around and keeping the heat away. However, as we head into the weekend and early next week, we still have another little wave going by to keep temperatures in check. But yes, this latest model shows that at the middle of next week, that high may come back. What day are we up to now? This should be around Wednesday or Thursday next week. Yeah, this is Thursday of next week. This would likely send valley temperatures up to around 100 degrees or higher, and we'll see how long it lasts and just how high that heat might get. But that's all next week, and right now we're talking about today's Wednesday, so we're talking about likely no 100s for at least the next 7 days. Maybe next Thursday and beyond we could see some. But still, right now at this point, we'll say could see some. We'll see how it goes. So in the meantime, today, warm but not overly hot for this time of year. Some Sierra showers this morning and maybe again this afternoon. Those two models are very different on what is going to happen this afternoon in the Sierra, but it'll be no different than what we've been seeing many other days with the Sierra showers and thunderstorms. And the early take on the weekend is, again, warm but not overly hot. So if you have outdoor plans for this weekend, the first weekend of August, yeah, it's going to be warm, but again, not overly hot. Don't expect any heat until maybe the end of next week. So that's everything I've got for you on this early Wednesday morning, but I did want to check in early to give you an update on what happened and what is happening with the tsunami along the coast. So as I'm reporting this right now and everything I've been able to read first thing this morning, a minimal impact on the coast. But as I showed you from those tide gauges, we certainly did see the tsunami on the west coast, but it does appear as though it didn't have that much impact. That's everything I have for you in this Wednesday morning. Make it a great day. I'll talk with you later.